single staring eye that watches you. And every one of those places that you try so desperately to avoid. So, now that we have become acquainted, what are you going to do about it?
That's great, thank you. So I think that video is very powerful because I've watched it countless times, but the way the music and the way his acting, you can actually physically feel. I don't know if I think it's a very good one for people who might not have experienced that level of anxiety to actually think about what that might feel, but also for people who are experiencing it to say, wow, that happens to me all the time and it keeps me from doing things. So Australia has a huge campaign going on over the last decade around mental health awareness, education, and trying to increase access to care. And I think really in Canada we are on that edge of we're really starting to do that, and there's a real groundswell momentum here with the foundation work, through the Mental Health Commission of Canada. So I think we're going to see some real changes in our country over the next decade in terms of how we talk about mental health and mental illness, and I know some of us are really seeing it already, and it's really encouraging. So this is a very active Canadian brain. The US brain just sits there, doesn't do anything. But the Canadian one, it moves all around because we are always thinking in Canada. So this is what is anxiety, and what it does is just kind of shows how anxiety works. So it is a physical response, so our sensory information comes in through our senses, so nose, hearing, sight. Some of our most powerful ones are actually smells, if you can believe it. So smells can be a very powerful memory-evoking and anxiety response. Sight and hearing things. Those are some of our most strong sensory inputs in terms of an anxiety response. And those sensory things come right in, and they directly talk to our amygdala. And there's a quiz on this afterwards, and I'm not going to tell you how to spell it, you'll just have to guess. But it is our emotion center, and it decides if we are going to be scared, fearful, activate a fright-flight mechanism. In anxiety, that mechanism is very easily triggered, often when there's no danger, or the brain perceives an immediate danger, but it's because it sounded like something before, but it isn't the same thing. And we generalize very quickly. So we see something, it's a minimal threat, and anxiety makes it into a very big threat. And the cascade of that fear, fight, flight response is very hard to dampen. It's actually the front of our brain that has to dampen that down. And some people stay with what we call a generalized anxiety state most of the time. So they actually have a very high level of anxiety most of the time. So maybe not a full fright flight, but staying with feeling tense, tight, exhausted, can barely concentrate, thoughts continuously going and worrying in their brain. And the problem with it is anxiety is really designed there to help us. It is one of our survival mechanisms. So without it, we would not be here as a human race. It makes us look both ways before we cross the street. It makes us remember, seatbelts are relatively recent, but it makes us remember to put our seatbelts on when we're driving. That reason can be because you actually know that it actually prevents motor vehicle accidents and deaths, or it can be because you're afraid of getting a ticket. But for whatever the reason, it does help that anxiety. It helps us prepare for things. So it is a very important part of being human. We just want it to work properly, to help us do well at the things we're doing, not to prevent us from functioning, not to prevent us from leaving the house, or make it not possible to go to social events, or make it too difficult to actually concentrate on a test or do something at work, make it impossible to sleep. That is when it's getting in the way of our lives. So really, it's not anxiety is bad, it's too much anxiety in situations that don't warrant it, and on a more chronic basis causes a lot of stress in people's lives and really decreases their functioning. And these are some of the things that happen with anxiety. So fewer friends and more isolated. trouble trying new things and meeting new people. And we really notice this in young people. If anxiety really becomes a big part of their lives and makes decisions for them instead of them making decisions for themselves, then their world gets smaller and smaller. And many of the young people who have anxiety, the most common anxiety disorder in teens is social anxiety disorder, will, in extreme cases, stop going to school and even stop leaving their house and seeing anyone besides their family. Academic problems and trouble concentrating. Low self-confidence is a big factor with a lot of anxiety disorders. School and work avoidance. And anxiety, if it continues and it's not treated, increases chance of depression and substance use. So the most common pattern in teens is someone who has had anxiety for a while develops a lot of patterns, lower self-confidence, withdrawal, stops engaging in things, and actually develops a major depressive episode. The other thing that happens with anxiety is because those feelings are so intolerable, people will seek out ways to at least numb them for a little bit or use substances in order to be able to participate because it actually numbs it for a bit. The problem is the cycle is not helpful because actually most substances increase anxiety once they wear off. So it turns into a very, I guess, unhealthy pattern, but it's often a way that people cope. Now we're going to talk a little bit about depression. We go to the next slide. So one of the things that we talk about when we talk about depression is that a lot of people don't have a good understanding of what it is, and I think it's because it's a term that's misused. People say a lot of the times, I'm depressed, and true depression is very different than just feeling low or sad. And so what I want to talk about is the normal moods that people have, and I put normal, as you can see, in quotation marks, because normal is really very broad, and what I'm saying when I'm saying normal is the fluctuations that we would see in the population where you would not have a major depressive disorder. And you see big swings in regular, everyday activities with people. Some people have more swings than others, so you will know people that they seem their mood never seems to change. That would be my husband. He just is even, and I just want to light a fire under him sometimes, like, come on. But it's also really awesome to have that in your house, because I am a little bit more on the, I can be a little bit more up and down, and so everyone has a different balance of where that is, but those would all be considered within the range of non-sort of disorder, and within sort of a reaction to things that go on in regular life. You can have a very traumatic event in your life or a very positive event, and that could swing you out of that range for a while, but you would expect to start to move back into the range again. With depression, there is a real drop below the range and you don't go back up. And it is a very lonely place to be, and it's a very scary place to be. And if you know anyone who has depression, if you have ever suffered a depressive episode yourself, you know how isolating it can be and how hard it is to think that anything could be better, or even remembering when things were good. And one of the things with mental illness is it takes away the memory part of when you were well. So you really can't remember a lot of the times of when things were going well, and so you lose hope that they can get back to there again. And that's where family and friends are really important, to be that memory, to have that hope for that person, because the illness itself sometimes takes that away. We'll go to the next slide. And these are just some of the symptoms that accompany depression. A lot of times there is no obvious cause. A lot of times people are looking for a cause, and we definitely, when we talk to teens and families, we do ask about events, but there isn't always an event or a cause or a reason or one that we can find, and that is okay. We can help treatments work without having to know exactly what caused it. So that's an important part to know. Also, many people don't know that with depression you can actually be quite physically unwell. So feel very ill, tired, achy. You can have a lot of other physical complaints, stomach complaints, so joint complaints. So there can be a lot of other physical things that go along with depression. And really there's very little. You might have little bits of time where your mood could temporarily be a little bit up, but there's very little that can move it up and keep it up. You lose interest in things, you don't get the same pleasure and enjoyment from things, and in extreme cases, you feel life's not worth living, and people think about ending their life or attempt suicide. And this is just the statistics on how many are actually seeking help. Only about half of those who feel they've suffered from depression or anxiety actually seek help. So we'll go to the next slide. So this one, I'm just going to, this is one more video clip. And some of you may have seen this is from the Bell Let's Talk Day campaign. Okay, so that's just a little clip of someone reaching out, but how the illness itself can keep a person from reaching back. And what...
A father, son,
that's not me. That's you too.
Stay-at-home mom, construction worker,
volunteer.
At least it's got a good tone. You never know what could pop up on YouTube, so I feel pretty lucky right there. I was like, phew. So just going, what this, so in terms of that clip, it's just the really important part of that is often as a family member or a loved one or a friend, you need to make more than one attempt. You need to be there because the illness itself can really block people off, and a lot of people give up quickly, not realizing that it's actually the illness itself that's keeping it. And those reach outs are actually very important, and people will report to me in the office that it was the 10th time, or the guidance counselor who had met with them 4 times before they finally felt like they could actually tell them what was going on, but they didn't give up. And so it is a really key thing that we don't give up on people. So this is just getting to the end in terms of what we can do. So imagine if you got blamed for having cancer. I thought that was a great billboard slide. So really taking a stand of this is an illness like any other illness. It is no one's fault, and there is help and treatment available, and that is something, that's the message that we could be most helpful in promoting. And just in terms of your own health, which is very important, and when I talk about looking after your own health, one of the things that I think is we all have a role in looking after our own health overall, but it is not a 100% prevention strategy, nor can we prevent any illness 100%. It is a way to look after your mental health, whether you have an illness or not, and there are things you can do to promote your own mental health. But it is not because you didn't do these 10 things that you get a mental illness. So it's not, sometimes people take it as, if I do all these, everything will go well. And if you do these, hopefully you will be taking care of your health and know when to get help if you do suffer from a mental illness. And it also can help in your recovery as well. So talking about, so I'm just going to go back to, just in case you didn't read them, but talking about how you feel, eating well, keeping in touch with people. Often an illness itself can get you isolated, so making sure you stay in touch, taking breaks. We talk a lot to teens about accepting who you are, being comfortable with who you are, liking who you are, being active, drinking responsibly, doing things you're good at, and being around people that care about you and caring for each other is really important, and asking for help when you need it. So we're getting the how do you manage stress? So this is one of the other things is take care of yourself and manage stress. Know when your stress is high, know when you might not be coping as well, and take care of yourself, because you're there for not just yourself, but many of you probably have families and other people that depend on you. So if you're not taking care of yourself, then you won't be there for those people. So really think about that and how you can do it in small ways. And avoiding doesn't usually work as a general strategy, although my son, who's 16, uses this quite well and likes to cram. I say that it is not going to work out as a long-term strategy. So far he's surviving, but I am barely surviving that. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Take time together. So family meals actually have some pretty good data in them now. Having 1 or 2 family meals together in the week is very good for mental health within a family, but also very good for stress. And so as long as you're not trying to cook elaborate meals, and hate that, but if you spend time together as a family, that can make a big difference in terms of your mental health and your stress management. And reach out to people. So this is, I'm living in a texting world of teens right now, and I'm sure many of you are as well, so I love this. I don't know if I can read it from here, but can people read it? Don't forget to unload the dishwasher. Did you finish your homework? This is so me. We have to go to your grandmother's house for Thanksgiving. Dad and I talked, we're gonna buy you a car next month. You are! Oh my God, thank you. No, we're not. I just wanted to make sure you were getting my texts. That was cruel. So I haven't offered the car yet, but I have done some pretty amazing things on text just to get them to say, okay, like, you got my text. So I love that for teens. But reach out, stay in contact, fight stigma, talk about it, know the facts, illness, not weakness, focus on the person, not the disorder. Those are some of the themes that I try and talk to families about and people I work with and when I go to schools. Give hope. Treatments really work. In anxiety, we know that cognitive behavioral therapy is the #1 treatment, and it sounds very fancy, but it's actually changing the way you think and approach anxious situations. And that in itself has basically, if for 3 people, you get 1 person completely well with that therapy if they're engaged in it. So cognitive behavioral therapy is an extremely effective treatment. Often we'll use it in combination with medication in more severe anxiety, but many people just with cognitive behavioral therapy alone can manage their anxiety. And depression also uses a similar therapy and medication. Understanding, support, encouragement,